Hello, and welcome to the Everyday Tarot Podcast, your deep dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, intuitive tarot reader, and professional witch, and today I'm talking about a Wheel of the Year spread. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Going forward, tune in every Monday morning to check out the latest episodes. If you love the show, the best way to support it for free is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. If you want to access the most up-to-date info on upcoming events, presentations, musings, and info and photos of my day-to-day life in my newsletter, that is a one-stop shop. The link to joining my newsletter will be in the show notes. If you're interested or know someone that might be a good fit to be a guest on the podcast, please have them fill out my form, the guest inquiry form, linked in the show notes as well. And you can find the links for any of these offers, like I said, in the show notes or on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards I pull on each episode. All right, let's get into it. So today I am discussing a Wheel of the Year spread. I actually got this spread from the Herb Crafters Tarot, a tarot deck that I have. So a lot of decks in their tarot deck guidebooks have spreads in them. Sometimes they are kind of standard spreads. So like in here, they share a 3-card spread of current situation, challenge, potential outcome. Often a 3-card spread, it would also be known as past, present, future. They also have a 5-card one in here that's called Who, What, Where spread, which I like. I haven't done that one. They have a 4 directions spread because the instead of having the traditional tarot suits in this deck, they have different elements. So they have earth, air, fire, water, and then they pull the last one from the major arcana. So they have you sort your deck basically into different the suits, and then you pick one from each suit, which is super interesting. Maybe I'll do that one in the future. I've never organized my deck and then done that one. And then this is kind of like a year ahead spread. So they talk about here, this spread is based on the Wheel of Fortune card. It can be done at the new year, your birthday, or at the beginning of a life-changing time. You pull 9 cards, and each card represents the key energy coming to you during that season. So this is what we're going to do today. I'm going to show it here. Let's see. So there's the shape of it. It kind of is a diamondy circle that starts at the bottom, and you kind of do the cards up to the top and then down back to the bottom, and then the last card's in the middle. And so I am actually going to switch over my camera. We'll see how it goes, to show my document camera so you can actually stare at the cards while I'm telling you about them. I am going to do some research to see if in the future I can have both cameras going, because that would be ideal, like at the same time, so you can see my face and the cards at the same time. But today we're just going to switch over, and you'll just hear my voiceover basically in the background as we do so. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so camera is switched over, and now you're looking at my desk. How nice. So first I'm going to pull the number 1 card, which is for the winter solstice. Let's grab it here. And again, this is the Herb Crafters Tarot, written by Letitia Guthrie, artwork by Joanna Powell Colbert. Okay, here's the first one. I pulled the Hanged one. Let me see if I can get the whole image in here. Apologies. Okay, so I'll go down a little. There we go. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Let's try hit my mic there. Let's try the light. Is that any better? Slightly, but we get a not so fun glare. Okay, I think we're just gonna go with this for right now. Okay, so this is the hanged one, also known as Burdock in this deck. So obviously this deck is a plant herb crafting deck. So pretty much all of the things are different types of plants. So of course this is a major arcana card. It's the hanged one, or sometimes known as the hanged man. I did pull it upright here, as you can see. Let's see here. Okay. I think this will work for you. I had my camera mirrored, but I think this looks right. So hopefully this looks right to you. All right. So again, this is number 12, the hanged one, or burdock. At the top of each of these cards in the guidebook, it talks about, there's like a little kind of like poem, or yeah, a kind of like summary of what to do. So again, this is when we think of winter solstice. Immediately, I'm like, oh, burdock, right? You see it. It's a big old root. It has parts above the root, but burdock is usually harvested for the root. And I'm like, oh yeah, makes total sense. Winter solstice, it's winter. We are in the ground. We are hibernating. So burdock makes sense to me. So it says, embrace a foe as a friend. Tap into nourishment found in the depths. Let go of control, and lasting change takes time. And it goes on to describe the card here. So it says, a cup of tea placed over a large burdock leaf reflects the naked tree outside the window. A large clean root rests on the table, which you can see in the image, the tendrils forming the shape of the hanged one. Legs crossed like the numeral 4, burdock root runes spill out from the blue velvet bag toward a lit beeswax candle. And if you are just listening to this and you want to check out the cards or the video version of this episode, you can go to Spotify and find the Everyday Tarot podcast, or you can go on youtube.com/at Camille A. Saunders, and you can find the video episodes there. So this says, challenge presents an opportunity for growth. Though burdock is a tenacious weed, it is also a valuable plant. The presence of burdock may indicate where the land is lacking nutrients. It also talks about that change takes time, right? Again, burdock is this kind of root energy. It's grounding. You can see on here, it's a very long root. So it has a huge taproot, which if you've ever had burdock in your yard, it's fairly common as like a weed plant. It has, I would say, its most significant, above the surface aspect of the plant is the leaf itself. It doesn't look super unique here, but if you were to see it in person, it often has, like if you were to flip the leaf over or look at the top, it will often have a red like vein that would be sort of the stem here. And that is one of the ways I identify it. It kind of looks like the another known weed known as plantain. So not plantains like the thing that's kind of like bananas that you might eat, but plantain, the like leafy plant. Another common like springtime weed in a lot of yards. So burdock, often you go to pull it out and it's very challenging, or you go to grab the weed and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't get this out. Often you'll just rip the leaves off and the root's still in the ground. So again, burdock known for its long root. When the leaves break down, the soil improves and burdock will no longer have conditions to thrive. So again, burdock thrives kind of on land that's lacking nutrients, right? Often why you can find it like right next to the sidewalk, or sometimes in gravel, or in like parking lots. And let's see what else. So yeah, burdock serves as a plant it actually kind of like repairs soil, right? It's saying, okay, plants itself down. It gets this really deep root. It leaves out, and then all the leaves fall and it mulches itself. And as it's tapped down far into the earth like that, it actually is kind of changing the way that the soil is. And that is actually how a lot of weed plants are. Weeds, as we call them, weeds are really just plants that we didn't necessarily plant intentionally and we don't always like. Most weeds, things that are considered weeds, don't necessarily thrive on neglect, but thrive in soil that lacks nutrients. It's why you'll find certain plants so plantain was one, dandelions sometimes, although it not so much as other ones, St. John's wort, foxglove, a lot of these things, beautiful plants, but really often found, like I said, in parking lots, or again, right at the edge of right at the edge of a sidewalk, and really what they're trying to do is they are doing hard work to repair our soil. So right when we think of winter solstice, I think of, again, bringing that nourishment to the surface. I like in here that it says, flip the script on a difficult situation, right? This is kind of the hanged one aspect of it. See the problem as the solution. So, right, again, just like the burdock plant says, oh, this soil sucks. I'm going to improve it myself. And then kind of once I die off or once I leave, the soil will be better for new other types of plants that need more nutrients to thrive. Burdock also as a medicinal plant, usually for its root, is an ally for the liver as it helps clear and release toxins. It says healing the land or the body requires long-term commitment. Surrender to the process. Deep change takes time. All right, so that is burdock there, and that was for the winter solstice. Let's move on to the next one. Since we do have 9 cards, I need to move faster. So for the next one, this is Candlemas. These are different kind of the pagan high holidays of the year. So here I pulled Hija of Fire, which is the California poppy in this deck. I immediately am like, that's funny. It's a fire sign, a fire element, right? So this would be the equivalent of, I have to always consult the book on this because hija means daughter in Spanish. So hija is like the page. Adelita is like the knight, and then we have madre as the queen, and curanderas or healers as the king equivalents. So the hija of fire here would be like the page of wands equivalent. And again, just like Candlemas, right, where it's burning bright, it's kind of where it's fire energy, right, a thing we need in kind of the darker times of winter. And just like that, the California poppy is, right, this bright, vibrant plant. If you've ever been to California and driven along the highways, you'll often just see California poppy, like hundreds of thousands of it, just kind of on the rolling hills or on the highway median or on the sides. Poppies are very interesting. They grow. So the California poppy is common, again, kind of like as a weed. It doesn't just grow in California. You'll find it in other places as well. But again, kind of when we are less resourced, right, in winter sometimes, it can be helpful to have that sort of like vibrant fire energy. So here it says, create with the enthusiasm of a beginner. Boisterous play, then sweet sleep, light up the landscape with golden joy. The Hija of Fire jumps at the chance to be creative. She cannot wait to begin a new project. She approaches everything with the playfulness of a child. Knowing the strong elixir of California poppy creates magic. She takes small but confident steps towards independence. She may have watched an elder many times, but now she makes medicine for herself. I love that message, right? That we can observe others and then we kind of gain this small confidence and we step towards independence. So it says, just as the California poppy flowers light up dry, wild desert meadows with their brilliant color, she stays open to the light, sways with the wind, and radiates delight. So yeah, you can buy California poppy seeds. This book, as I'll show here, the Herb Crafter's Tarot, at the bottom of each section. So here you go. Here's a behind the scenes. Here's what I'm reading from here. So for each card, it has the name at the top, right? The plant, the actual Latin name of the plant, which I don't normally say, but it's there. So if you need to be specific, which of course is very important for medicine or using plants as medicine, right? This is the part I read that's kind of the summary. Then we have what the picture looks like. So in case you can't see it, you can read it. There's kind of the divinatory message. And then at the bottom, there's crafting. So right here, it says, here's how to craft with the Iha of Fire card. You can craft fairy dolls with poppy flowers to inspire enthusiasm. Spend time gathering California poppy in a wild meadow or crafting a relaxing elixir, or do some guerrilla gardening, which kind of just means like, you might know the term guerrilla warfare, but kind of like going out on your own and spreading seeds is considered guerrilla gardening. And often it's that you're not going to tend those seeds. You're going to take sometimes like a seasoning or spice mix container that has those like holes in the top, or like a salt shaker basically. And you put a bunch of seeds in them. And then as you go about your day to day, or as you walk down sidewalks or in kind of different spaces out in nature and often in urban areas, you spread seeds as you go, and you just kind of like are like, okay, we're just gonna sprinkle joy everywhere you go. And so that is what's considered guerrilla gardening. And again, these seeds would be good for that. Not all seeds are great for that, but a lot of wildflowers, which California poppy is, very, very small seeds. And again, they sort of are used to having not a lot of nutrients, so they might do, okay in an environment in which you like scatter them in a median on a highway or like on the side of the road or adjacent to a parking lot kind of thing. Yeah, okay, so that is the Candlemas card, and I love that, making medicine for yourself, right? Which can also be this creativity, which is depicted on the card here. All right, for spring equinox, I pulled the Hermit in reverse, which in this deck is Usnea. And Usnea is basically I'm pretty sure a type of lichen, although of course I will confirm. Here, let's see. I guess it doesn't necessarily say. But yeah, I believe it is a lichen that, as you can see here, it's kind of made into a wreath in this image, which is very cool. So I'll turn it upright just so you can see how it's spelled. So Usnea. If you live where I live, or if you go to any type of very wet forests or dark areas, like often Usnea is growing. It's often like hanging off of tree limbs or things like that. I see it a lot. It's very common to me. It says, and a wreath of usnea lies on a bed of fresh snow. It has rose hips, cottonwood twigs, dandelion roots, pine cones, and crow and gull feathers. It has 3 quartz crystals up here, pointing north with a single owl feather at the bottom here. A candle is lit in the center as an offering. And this card, right, it is in reverse, and this deck doesn't have reversal descriptions. So again, I'll show you the page here. So it's, 1 page per card basically. And in some tarot decks they have at the bottom, they would kind of have a reversal description. So this one does not have that, which kind of makes sense since in this deck, there's not necessarily the opposite of a plant, which is sometimes how we read reversals. So this card says, withdraw into sacred solitude, gather treasures from darkness and emerge with light. Rest and stillness are good medicine. Go within and listen for your own voice. Clarity is found in places empty of others' thoughts and ideas. Usnea, also called old man's beard, grows long and healthy on trees where the air is clean. Find your mountain. Ask for guidance from nature. There are many gifts to be gathered in dark times, rose hips, cottonwood, and pine cones among them. And they mean like literal dark times. Again, like these are all things that can be harvested in winter. Cottonwood opens very early. Pine cones, right, are often littering the ground in the winter. Rose hips are basically the fruit of roses. And so they actually stay on the plant all winter, or as they get eaten, of course, they might leave, but they're a vitamin C. Something that's good for vitamin C in winter when there's not a lot of other fruit around for the critters. Yeah. And the feathers of birds, which I have chickens and ducks as like livestock at my house. And they actually usually switch over their feathers. So they call it molting. So they kind of lose all of their current set of feathers and grow new ones in like late fall generally. So I think in like November, December, usually where I live. So I could kind of imagine that, finding some extra feathers on the ground then. So yeah, here it says, right, this is saying, right, the hermit card generally is kind of like pull away, find your resources in winter. So I sort of interpret this as like, right, if we think about it in reverse, that like, okay, right, especially for the spring equinox, it's like, okay, it's time to come out. Like, it's time to get outside, let the wisdom grow when you're ready, emerge with the light. Rest and stillness are good medicine, and like we can't or maybe we shouldn't operate in rest all year round. Right as spring emerges, spring equinox, which is generally March 21st. That's when kind of a lot of, again, where I live, things are popping out of the ground. We're getting daffodils and stuff already, or fruit trees are starting to get buds or even flowers that early. So here I sort of took the like, okay, the hermit means we kind of go away and we go into winter, but here, especially since it's spring equinox time, it's saying, no, it's time to come out. It's time to find, seek your understanding from the people or support that you got in winter, and now we're going to bring them right into our more summer spring selves. So that was sort of how I interpreted this one, since the reversals are not talked about in this deck in particular. The next one I pulled was for Beltane or May Day, and I pulled the Three of Earth reverse, which is raspberry. So again, I'll turn it over so you can see Three of Earth here. So we have these like baskets of raspberries. We have the plants of raspberries loaded with blooms in the back. And as I think about actual like May Day or Beltane, at least where I live, like that's when a lot of berries are starting. I don't know if I generally have raspberries on May Day in particular. Usually I get strawberries earlier, maybe in May, and certainly in June. I find raspberries to be a little later than that, but again, depends on where you live. In some places in the southern US, or certainly in other places that are more like tropical, you might have raspberries like all year round. So yeah, I will turn this over since that's how I pulled it. So I sort of interpreted this. So this is the Three of Earth again. So this would be like the Three of Pentacles, as like, often upright. It's about community and company brings joy to hard work is one of the things it says. Fill your basket with companionship and collaboration. Nourish your body and savor simple pleasures. It says, tend the abundance you're given. Again, very important as we start to enter into kind of like spring, summer. Again, where I live in the Northern Hemisphere. It's still pretty cool in May around that time, but we're getting a lot more sun. It's getting a bit warmer. It's still fairly rainy generally where I live until about July. But yeah, this talks about building a strong legacy with your community, enjoy the sweetness of life, right? Like, what are the ways that you can, harvest a bunch of things? And it says, take a class in your community and learn. So when I think about it being in reverse, it's a little bit challenging because I don't totally know how to like interpret it. But I would say kind of like perhaps you're seeking community in this time, or perhaps you're kind of been feeling weighed down by the amount of things you want to do. I think a lot of us start to feel that as the weather gets warmer and as yeah, and just as we have more exciting plans to do that, like, it's like, oh, okay, well, like there's so many things I want to do. How am I gonna get them all done? So I feel like, right, this tend the abundance you've been given, right? A lot of times, especially as a gardener or like farmer, like it can be very overwhelming in the summer, or even just preparing for that, where basically you do like a bunch of work, most of the work in like 6 months of the year, and then the rest of the year, you're kind of waiting and creating your compost, or, you know, shelling beans, or you're kind of dealing with the things that you grew in the summer, but you're in kind of like a waiting, resting period. So this card, right, it's kind of saying like, okay, like you got a lot going on. Like, how are you gonna handle it? What are you gonna do with all of these like community or people or friendships that you have right now? And you better take advantage of it, because again, if you think about literal raspberries, they don't last very long. They're very hard, right? They put them in those clamshell plastic containers. I guess that's what they're called from a recycling purpose, but they put them in these like plastic, formed containers so that they don't get squished. Because I've harvested raspberries in a basket, and honestly, when I look at these baskets, I'm like, the bottom of them would be like covered in juice because raspberries like compress on each other. Just because they're pretty delicate. And so it's like, okay, like, you can freeze them, you can maybe dehydrate them, or, eat them, certainly, but it's hard to, store them for very long without some method of preservation. Unlike some other things like potatoes or pumpkins or something, where you can kind of just like put them in the dark for a while and they're okay. Raspberries, you put them in the fridge for a while and they're okay, but they don't last super long. I freeze a lot of mine when I've had them in the garden, but I love them. So I also just eat a lot of them fresh. So I do feel like that's the other part of this card, is just like, enjoy it while you can is like the vibe. Okay, for summer solstice, I pulled another reversal. So the 8 of Earth in reverse, which is turmeric, and I'll put it upright so you can see a bit better right now. Oh, it's not focusing. Okay, there we go. So they have turmeric here, the root, and then they're kind of like grating it into a mush or something, and then they're using it as a dye bath. So turmeric is if you've ever cut it on your cutting board, you're aware it will dye your cutting board for a while, or like your hands from touching it. But you can actually dye clothing or fabrics with it. And so you can see out the window, they've sort of dyed some clothes this beautiful kind of golden color. So, but I did pull it in reverse. So we're going to put it back in reverse there. So this was for summer solstice, which again felt sort of appropriate. Like those are certainly the colors of summer solstice where I am. Like I think of St. John's wort often for summer solstice as this like bright yellow flower. But also, right, that golden color is really, yeah, what's in that time. So it talks about here, let your tasks be an embodied prayer. Do the work and teach what you know. Talks about putting in the time to hone your skills. So I sort of, with the reversal, interpreted this as, okay, you're making strong commitments. Like turmeric stabilizes our body and gives it a lot of vitality and strength. Turmeric medicine has been passed down generationally. And it talks about hard work can take its toll, and to care for yourself at your root. And also this level of like teaching. Trust the value of keeping time-honored traditions alive. So if you've ever had golden milk, which is like a latte sort of, but it's made with milk and honey and turmeric and ginger, it's very like restorative. Again, you can like dye clothing with turmeric, like it stays a long time, right? And I think often that is how we want summer solstice to be, is like, oh, finally the sun at its peak, like let's stay here forever. And it talks about you can host a turmeric dyeing party, gather community, and teach them what you have learned. So again, with the reversal, I'm sort of interpreting this as like, again, like be committed, right? Again, if you had a lot of plans for summer, like get those on the calendar, get those out there and kind of like stabilized for your future. That it takes like time and effort to make things kind of like go through. It even says in here, hard work sometimes takes its toll. It can feel isolating and frustrating, but do it anyway. So turmeric can kind of like help us. And again, in the same way, summer solstice can kind of help fuel our energy for a while, because when the sun is out, at least where I live, I think it gets up to like 16 hours a day in the summertime, or even more. Yeah, maybe it is about 16. That there's just a lot of light, a lot of time to do activities, and it makes your body feel very more awake. All right. Let's move on. So for Llamas, I pulled the 9 of Earth reversed, which was apple, which again feels appropriate because that's to me kind of like the time of year of apples. It's maybe a little early for where I live when we really start like putting them up and having them everywhere and all sorts of stuff, but a lot of apples are ready then, so I'll turn it up right so you can see at first. So we have apples here. We have them kind of sliced where you can see the 5-pointed star. We have them dried right on this kind of beautiful ribbon up here. We maybe see some other spices and things like cinnamon that goes with apple here. And then we have the like spiralizer down here for if you bake apples, usually they are peeled. And so the spiralizer helps like peel a lot of the apple, I believe. I don't have one of those, but it would be common if you process apples at all. All right, I'm going to turn it back in reverse. So this card talks about celebrate the wealth you have by giving. So reciprocity is the key to sustainability. Apples are part of a complex ecosystem, and you should use all of the parts. It kind of talks about how apple trees can be quite old, and you might not even know it. They don't necessarily get very big, or at least when they are kind of productive, we often will chop off the top so that you can reach all of the apples, which would be important, obviously. And that it is this sort of like, it says they can live over 100 years. Apple trees supply branches for fencing, for pollinators, like with the flowers, hundreds of pounds of fruit each season, and they provide cold preventing medicine with leaves and blossoms. Though harvested in the fall, apples last into the spring when properly stored. When you care for your resources with intention, you can feed more than yourself. So here I feel like it's kind of like, okay, like we're doing things together. Again, they last all winter. So if you, again, kind of do things in the summertime, a lot of those memories or pictures or travel experiences can kind of like last with you all year, even when it's darker and colder outside. And I love the last part because this, again, is the 9 of Earth, which would be like the 9 of Pentacles that says, believe in the magic of the earth. Here. So yeah, I guess that when I think of the reversal, I think of like maybe we haven't been paying as much attention. Maybe we're getting a little burned out from summer at that time of year. Again, depending on where you live, like in some places it's been hot for like 4 months by then. Where I live, August is like tomatoes finally start ripening and coming in. So it's a bit more exciting and less draining. But I know in some places it's like 100 degrees in May. And so, by August, you might be like, yeah, I'm ready for fall. Like, I'm ready for some cooler weather. So this is just kind of saying like, right, like make sure you're building sustainability, and that perhaps, right, this time of year can be challenging for that, or can kind of challenge us to do so. All right, for autumn equinox, I pulled the 5 of Fire, Black Cohosh, and I asked my friends, and I pulled this card recently, like, I don't really know this plant. And of course, the book tells me about it, but it talks about that Black Cohosh is the tincture of it supports the female reproductive system, often alleviating pain and releasing stuck fluids from the body, teaches us to harness the power of our own creative source. As a tall flower bends easily in the wind, cultivate a strong, flexible backbone. And I do feel like autumn equinox, like it's very like back to school season. It's like we kind of get like, okay, let me get organized and like get my stuff ready for the rest of the year kind of part. So I do think it kind of, we start to think about what we want to do and kind of being intentional. Perhaps, again, back to school season's kind of like if you have kids or work within the school system, right? It requires a lot of flexibility. It's a kind of a challenging because there's a lot of transition time for everyone, transitioning from kind of like the fun, wild times of summer to like structure and, you know, early bedtimes and like the sun's starting to go down earlier and earlier every night. It says that Black Cohosh, the folk name of it was called snake root and signifies transformation. Rattle like a snake and shed your skin. So I really like that. It says, burn through the slumber of helplessness and complacency. Resist. Women's rage is a force that will change the world. So a very powerful plant, right? And again, with fire, that makes sense. So this would be like the Five of Wands. It talks about like activism. It says you can support the United Plant Savers efforts to preserve this plant. Can use that as a tincture like we talked about. Or I guess the seed parts are kind of what the rattle name is known for. They probably darken, or these are the flowers, so they kind of darken and become quite small. And when you shake it, probably rattles like that. So it says you can kind of craft the power of the rattle of power with the seeds there. It says, discern whether your rage is righteous or if it is rooted in fear and insecurity. An important message all of the time. Okay. And then for Hallowmas, we have the moon reverse, which is Datura, one of the most poison plants or, medicinal, depending on how you view it. A beautiful plant, right? And Datura blooms in evenings, which is why it's kind of associated with the moon here. I did pull it in reverse though, so I am going to turn it in the reverse here. It says, face the unknown, enter the luminous darkness, and open your eyes to night blooming magic. It's all about intuition, which again, we can think of like Samhain time of year, right? This is kind of like an October time. Datura has a long history of magic and lore with witches and cunning folk. The potent seeds and flowers have been used by experienced practitioners to induce alternative states of consciousness. Turn towards mystery with curiosity and courage. Your dreams may be vivid and easy to remember, but also scary and confusing. Datura is a toxic plant whose ingestion can quickly lead to a number of permanent damaging effects. Learn to speak the language of symbol, myth, and metaphor. I like that. As Datura blooms with the moonlight, so it is now time to stay awake and witness the magic that dwells in the darkness. Embrace the power of vibrational medicine. So here again, as we think about this kind of in reverse, we can think about turning towards mystery, or maybe we're having a hard time doing that time of year. Sometimes a lot of grief comes up right around like Samhain time or Halloween or Day of the Dead, when the veil is thin and maybe we're thinking about ancestors or folks that have passed on. We're just kind of feeling into our grief. Sometimes that can be, we can kind of reject that. I like that it talks about speaking the language of symbol, myth, and metaphor, right? Instead of necessarily like literal things. And witness the magic that dwells in the darkness. Again, at that time of year, we are in darker days, and it's only getting darker as we kind of approach winter solstice. And again, that's kind of like the witch's new year time of year. So we kind of end there, right, with this spread. And then the final card is, what will keep me centered in the midst of change, right? As you move season to season, Through the wheel of the year, we have 10 of fire here, which would be like 10 of wands with comfrey. And I love the plant comfrey. So you can kind of see it back here. It has these beautiful giant green leaves and purple kind of bell hanging flowers. You can see here someone, it looks like, cut the stems, and they have some leaves and some, I don't know what the other thing are, although it probably says it in here. It says there can be too much of a good thing. Step away, and soothe yourself. Cut it down and it roars back to life. Let's see. Oh, this is beeswax, it says. So they've like grated some beeswax because they're going to make a like a salve. So that is often what comfrey is used for. So again, this is kind of the like, how do you stay centered? So actually this card talks a lot about burnout. You may be overextended. It says peace follows overwhelm. The shelves in this room are full, yet the crafting continues. Rest and replenish so your experiences can take root. Refresh your love of creating by releasing some self-imposed responsibilities. Comfrey quickly becomes burdensome and difficult to manage, but it will regenerate after harsh cutting. Like you can literally, it will be like 3 feet tall and you can cut it all the way to the ground and it will come back very quickly. Commit to just a few tasks and set the rest aside. Pushing too hard will lead to waste and exhaustion. Do not be afraid to give away some of your creative ideas. When you harvest too much, let what you cannot use feed the soil for next season's growth. So comfrey is often used in a skin salve. It has extreme healing properties to the point that sometimes it can be dangerous, because if you put it on your skin and there's something like if you have a cut and it starts to get infected, well, if you put comfrey over it, now the infection is kind of like stuck in your finger, like it will heal over, but you'll still have that kind of part underneath. So you have to be a bit careful. It's a strong medicine, I would say. But comfrey is also used often in like gardening or like regenerative farming as a mulch. Again, like if you ever find a patch of it, good luck ever getting rid of it. So you'll probably just try to make peace with it. At my old house where I lived, we had it grew in the kind of like darkest, wettest, most protected part of the yard. It was on the kind of like northeast side of our house outside. It was in total shade, maybe except in like the height of summer, it would get some like morning sun, but it was like by a wall and by our front porch, kind of in between two things. It was very wet and dark there because the rain would come off the roof, and then it was kind of protected on either side by these walls. And huge plants. Again, I would cut them down quite a lot and use them to mulch trees and other things in the summertime because it has quite large leaves. And like I said, if you cut it, it'll just like whoop, come right back. But it has beautiful purple kind of like hanging flowers that the bees, like bumblebees in particular, really like. So sometimes in the summer, I didn't have the heart to cut it all back because there were just so many little bees enjoying it. But so right, this card's talking about, so, you know, how will you keep centered in the midst of change? It says kind of like, right, do one thing at a time, and that sometimes you might have tasks or ideas, you might have to set them aside. Pushing too hard leads to waste and exhaustion. And to sometimes, right, if you have ideas, maybe you're not the one that's meant to use them all. Maybe, again, maybe you're tucking that in your back pocket for next year. Maybe you're sharing that with someone else, or you're collaborating, and maybe someone else takes the brunt of the load of organizing it or whatever it is. When you harvest too much, let what you cannot use feed the soil for next season's growth. So I love that. So that's where we're going to end for today. And again, this was the Herb Crafters Tarot, written by Letitia Guthrie, and artwork by Joanna Powell Colbert. This is what the front of the box looks like here. I'll pull it up a little bit so you can see a bit better. There we go. So yes, you have some calendula on the front cover, making medicine, which I love. All right. Well, thanks for joining me today. Since we did a tarot spread, well, We'll go ahead and pull out another card just for fun. I'll pull from my numerology one again. This is the Numerology Oracle by Rosemary Templeton. Last time I pulled the 6. It's on top of my deck here. You're going to get the live view of my shuffling, so get excited. All right. So let's dive in and see what the cards have to say. Ooh, that was a good shuffle. Okay, so I like to cut the deck and I pull from the bottom. Okay, we pulled 3 in reverse. I don't think this has reversals really, but I'll try to interpret it. So we'll put that back upright for you. And all of these cards have kind of this repeating colors in the background, and they actually will talk about it. So it says, 3 is all about creativity. If you have drawn this card, you're being asked to focus on giving help and understanding to someone who might need comfort at this time. You are also required to be the optimist. Listening and passing on happy energy is called for now. Also, by using some creative way to do this would be a great benefit to the person needing your advice. Maybe you could do with some happy energy yourself, and if this is the case, do your best to turn your thoughts to happy times. This card also indicates opportunities and deals with feelings and inspiration. You are being advised to examine life on the broader scale because you are blessed with choice and prophecy and are asked to use your intuition. You are also lovingly urged to be tolerant with those around you. This number resonates to the colors ruby, gold, and amber, like are on the card here if you are watching the video. It says, to attract the desired energies closer to you, wear one or more of these colors. Perhaps you have a garment in these colors you can wear, or a scarf, tie, or pocket handkerchief in ruby, gold, or amber here. And again, I love these cards. They are all this beautiful. And kind of the repeating aspect of it. So yeah, I guess I didn't talk about the reversal aspects. I would say maybe you're feeling stuck in creativity, or maybe, right, you've been feeling like, oh, I don't know if I can have hope about this. For me right now, it's making me think of a very particular situation with some relational clients I have as a therapist. I see couples and relationship clients, which just means I see people that are in relationship together, whether that's 2 or more people. And it's making me think about a particular client where I'm like, oh, I think what they're wanting right now is kind of me to be able to hold the hope in their relationship. And I'm like thinking about like, ooh, we should talk about that in our next session. So that's kind of what's coming up for me. And I think sometimes, right, if we're not feeling that hopefulness or we're waiting for someone else to do it, it can kind of be challenging for our creativity or for that kind of like opportunity or happy energy if we're just kind of like waiting for someone else to bring it forth. Sometimes we have to create that for ourselves. And there can be quite a lot of nice things about that too, creating your own joy or happiness. All right, so again, that was the Numerology Oracle here by Rosemary Templeton. Just as a reminder, in 2026, I'm doing weekly episodes. They'll be published Monday mornings. I hope to have guests about once a month, and all of the video. Every time I do it, I will have video episodes. So if you want to check out the video versions, you can go on Spotify or YouTube to find those. On Spotify, it will just be under Everyday Tarot. And on YouTube, it's youtube.com/@Camille A. Saunders. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, you can fill out my form to be a guest. Links for the decks will always be in the show notes and on my website if you want to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today. Tune in every Monday morning to check out the latest episode. And you can email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.